Hi, everyone. So, today I'm going to share a parade of books that I've read for my journey. I was asked recently to share some of the books that I read that I thought were impactful. Um, I'm a big reader. I used to read, one thing about me is I used to be controlled by my obsessions. And for about 7 years, I read a book a day. And that, is long gone, but I'm still an avid reader, and part of the process of me healing was learning more about myself and learning to dig deep and get to know who I really was, since I was completely lost and didn't know who I was. So I'm gonna start with, like, just a parade of books, and I wanna apologize now because I'll probably mess up some of the authors' names. Um Sorry, but they did all have an impact on me. I did also listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I can look through those and also see which ones were impactful. These are not all of the books I've read, and I have read other books that were very impactful. And if we're talking about spiritual journey books, that would probably be a different segment, even though there are some of those in this. This was more about healing me and healing the inside of me, getting to know myself again or to truly know who I was because I had zero idea. And imagine most of my life I had zero idea knowing who I was and what made me tick. Anyways, let's start with the parade of books. The first one that I read was Gabber in the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. One that I did listen to on Audible that I don't have the book of was also Gabor Mate's Myth of Normal, and I would highly recommend both of those books. But yeah, The Myth of Normal was great. And as I mentioned before, I started a 12-step program, and that really started me on a journey of self-discovery and healing myself. And so that book is very impactful for me. And this is the big book. This is also a recovery book that was super impactful for me. It's called A Pair of New Glasses by Chuck C. This was probably the first book that brought me into my spiritual path. So it was very enlightening for me. The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. Boundaries by Charles Whitfield. And this was the first book I started listening to before I left my house. I was listening to it on Audible because I thought my life was such a disaster because I had no boundaries. That might have been a little bit true, and it was true. I didn't have boundaries, but there was a lot deeper issues underneath than not having boundaries. The Language of Letting Go, Melody Beattie. Great book. Codependent No More, Melody Beattie. The Language of Letting Go is like a daily reader, so it's really great. Or maybe that's the other one. Let me look real quick so that you know. Yeah. No, yeah. The sorry. This one is the daily reader, and it's super great and motivational. Self-Compassion by Kristen Neff. Love that book. Facing Codependency, Pia Melody. Radical Compassion, Tara Brach. A Path with Heart, Jack Kornfield. The Wise Heart, Jack Kornfield. This one's super great. I love this one. Radical Acceptance, Tara Brach. The Body Keeps Score, Bezel van der Kolk. Yes, I know I butchered that. Sorry. But So great. I'm also listening to it on Audible, both simultaneously. It can get really heavy, same with The Myth of Normal. Anytime I'm dealing with anything that has to do with trauma or my childhood or anything, all of that stuff will make me ultra sensitive. And so it kind of takes a while to get through some of them. And that's okay. That's just the path of healing for me. That's how it's been. I just started this one, Loving What Is by Byron Katie. She talks about doing the work, great stuff, self inquiry. Um, there's three others that were super impactful for me. Love this one. When Things Fall Apart. Pema Chodron, I think is how you say it. I'm probably really butchering it. I've listened to some of her YouTube talks, but this was a really great book. It's one of those ones that I will read every year. There's some of these that I'm like, oh, I'm going to read that every year because it was so good. And a lot of these were that for me because I learned so much about myself reading them. And when I actually apply some of the teachings that they had in there, they were super great. So these last two, I will say, when it comes to healing myself and the things that I had to do to face my past and some of the trauma, these two were it, man. Then this is an old one too. Healing the Child Within, Charles Whitfield. This book taught me a lot about my childhood and how to befriend that little girl inside who was so full of so much pain and who didn't feel loved. And this one really helped me identify that she's still there and she's still in pain and she needs to come to the surface and she needs to be loved. And it was so pivotal for me. This book really helped me heal some of that childhood pain and some of that pain that have carried with me my entire life. So I would highly recommend this book. And then lastly, Facing Love Addiction by Pia Melody. That book, if I thought I had childhood issues that carried on to my adult life, that book showed me how they impacted all of my adult relationships. It was very enlightening for me to learn that I'm not unique. This is part of the thing that happens to people who have come into some of the childhood stuff that I've come into. Our lives develop in a certain pattern, and how amazing that was to me to know that I wasn't special in that way, that my pain was very similar to other people's pain who have experienced the same childhood traumas or neglect or abandonment or all of the things that I had experienced. And it's kind of great to know that it's just part of my human experience and that I'm not alone. And so I was able to identify with a lot of those books and in a lot of those books, and it helped me feel not so alone. So I hope you found something that might have piqued your interest with these books because I know they all mean a lot to me. And I have read a lot of other books and I love reading. So if you have something great you want to share with me, let me know. Can't wait to hear or can't wait to read.